Hello friends, I am Coect, and this is a very special video because I know that most of you have been wondering for a long time why have the comments been disabled on my videos for several years, and maybe even why do I not post anything for months on end sometimes. And hopefully this video will, it's actually an audio log. Hopefully it will clarify a few things for you. This is, for me, the most difficult video I've made for you guys because out of all the hundreds and hundreds of videos I've made for you over the years, because in this video I'm actually going to talk about myself and let you know what's going on and things like that. So without further ado, I'm just going to say it that I have severe panic attacks, and well, on the worst of these panic attacks, I actually ended up half naked in a cornfield on the outskirts of the city, and it was just a nightmare. But in order for me to explain the chronological order of the events, I'm going to first of all take you back to the first time that this happened to me. So, I was 8 years old, and I was 8 years old, and I was coming home from school one afternoon. So, I was coming home, and at one point, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was alone. I was walking back home. It's not a very big distance from the school to my home. And at one moment, I don't remember for what reason, I turned around and there was a guy talking to a police officer way further back. And after a couple of seconds, the guy who was talking to the police officer pointed in my direction. And for some reason, I thought that he was pointing at me, and I panicked and I started to run all the way back home. And I didn't stop. I got home completely exhausted and of course, shaking, scared, and things like that. Now, of course, thinking back, that guy was probably not pointing at me. I hadn't done anything, let alone do anything wrong. But I guess I just have a hyperactive imagination, and there are constantly scenarios forming in my mind about things, and well, I guess for some reason I thought that he was pointing at me, and he was trying to inform the police officer that I need to be stopped or something. And so I got a really big scare then. I got home. I eventually calmed down during the day, and in the evening I I was about to go to bed when I basically, I don't know how to describe it, but other than had a nervous breakdown because well, I I all of a sudden I became afraid of going to sleep because I thought that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. So I thought that something would happen to me while I was asleep, and that I would die in my sleep, basically. So I thought that I would die in my sleep, and I didn't want to go to bed, and it was a real concern for me. I mean, this wasn't something like, you know, maybe something would happen, or I don't know, something childish, I would say. This was a real concern for me. So so that night, my parents called a doctor, a family friend, and she came over that night right here, and she I don't remember, I think she gave me some pills or something, and then she gave my mother the number of a really good child psychologist. And well, I then went to therapy to that child psychologist, another woman. She was really cool, really great. She had a really good way of talking to well, to me, but I'm guessing to all of the patients. And I was in therapy for months, and I because of this I skipped school for several weeks, and it was really difficult for me to go back, because I started being more and more afraid of basically almost anything. And so in order for me to go back to school, I also had a really great teacher, and what actually happened was an aunt of mine actually sat inside the classroom for the entire duration of the classes for weeks. I was the only kid that I ever heard of who had a family member permanently stay in the classroom. She was sitting in the last desk in the classroom, and that's why the teacher was just amazing, because she allowed this sort of compromise for me to feel comfortable. So there was this compromise because that was the only way I felt safe in there. And gradually, over the course of the weeks, my aunt that is, she stayed for less and less classes until eventually things started to get back to normal. And I recovered, and by mid-junior high, all this was just a distant memory, and I say, in my opinion, that I was completely recovered. But then, when I was in 7th grade, one of these random things, like the one with the guy and the police officer, who was the guy was pointing towards me, and the thing I described when I was, which happened when I was 8 years old, a similar thing happened again, and it brought back all these issues, and so again, I had to go back to therapy. I went back to the same child psychologist I went to when I was 8 years old, and this is, I don't know, this is not something that an 8-year-old child should be thinking about. That you're going to die in your sleep. You're supposed to at that age you're supposed to think about what presents you're going to get for Christmas, and where you're going to go on vacation, and things like that. But coming back to the 7th grade, so it happened again, something similar. Let's say the fears and the panics were different this time. There were, let's say, different things which made me sort of panic, although it wasn't something specific, or how can I put this? There were some things which could heighten the risk of me getting into one of these states, but basically anything could trigger it, and once something triggered it, then I became, let's say, afraid of that thing from that moment on, and try to avoid it, and things like that. So I went back to, like I said, I went back to the child psychologist again, and this time it was. I'm pretty sure it was longer. It took me longer to recover. I missed school for weeks, maybe more than a month. I was terrified. I couldn't go there. Because that's where it triggered. The first time when I was 8 years old, it triggered as I was coming home, on the way home. But when I was in the 7th grade, it happened actually at school. So yeah, and it also had physical manifestations. I had stomach pains when this was happening, and that made it even worse because all of a sudden I was panicking about the stomach aches, and it was a nightmare again. So I got left behind with the classes. I had to take separate exams than my classmates because I was so far behind. And the way I got back that time was I started going one class a day. So to a class which I felt comfortable with, a class which I liked, and I started out with information technology. I went there, and as soon as the class was over, I went home. And then the next day, the same thing happened, and so on and so on. And then eventually, I stayed to 2 classes every day, and then to 3, and so on. So it was a long process, and it was difficult. So this is what happened in the 7th grade. And again, I managed to pull through, and things seemed to get back to normal once again, eventually. But so I thought that I was done with this. I thought, okay, so I overcame the I don't know, the fears and attacks from when I was 8 years old, and I overcame the new set of fears from when I was in 7th grade. And I thought, okay, I can do this. This is doable. You know, I think I know what to do now, and things like that. So many years passed, and then, well, yes, it happened again. I was actually at the theater. I was watching a play with Indy, you know, Indy, who I did my Let's Plays of Lego Indiana Jones and Dungeons and Dragons. So I was with him at a play when I started to feel anxious and nervous, and I felt like I just couldn't sit there anymore in the seat, and it got to the point where I started to shove one of my fingernails into my palms or into another finger, almost to the point where I bled, because I was trying to move the focus away from the anxiousness to the physical pain of me basically shoving my fingernail into my skin. Unfortunately, that didn't work. So I got up in the middle of the play, and I went to the entrance for a while. I crouched there next to the entrance, and I sat there. Well, I sat crouched for, I don't know, it must have been about 5 minutes, until I figured there's no way I'm going to calm down like this and go back to my seat. It was impossible. So I just left, and then I came home and I was a mess. I burst into tears because I knew that it was back. All this this issue, all this feel, all this situation, it was back, and I knew that it was something very, very tough to handle, and that it was going to take a lot of time, a lot of time. So then I calmed down a bit, and a couple of days later, I said to my friend Indy, I said, let's go out somewhere and see if, let's see how I feel. So we went to this pub, and we both ordered some juice, and I got a cola, I think, and I didn't get a single sip of the juice of the cola. I started feeling bad again. I went to the bathroom. I spent about, I don't know, 10 minutes there, washing my face, shoving water at my face, and then I left the bathroom, and I said to him, let's go. This is not working. And basically, I knew that it was back. So again, I went into therapy, but this time it was a lot worse. The panic attacks got severe, up to the point where I was talking to the psychologist, and as I was describing what happened at the theater, all these things came back to me, and just grabbed me, and made me enter into that panicked state again. And she gave me a paper bag to breathe into, but that didn't help one bit. And so I just couldn't take it. I burst out of the office, and I was out of there. It was, I don't know how to describe it. It was just impossible to stay there. And so then I tried to see a therapist, and I was on diazepam for a while, but I had to give it up because it created addiction, and that was the last thing I needed. So I switched to different medications, and after a couple of months from the theater incident, things started to be sort of okay-ish. So what happened was, I decided to, a friend of mine, a fantastic friend of mine, basically my best friend from childhood. I've known him since childhood. He invited me to go with him because he wanted to look at some TVs at a store, and so I went with him. And I think this was my mistake because I pushed myself too much. You know how they say that you have to face your fears, and you have to embrace, I don't know, the fears and things like that. So I thought, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go with him. And it was the same city anyway, so I thought, hey, I'm gonna try to conquer this thing. So as we arrived at the store, we got there by car, and as we arrived there, just before we got out, I started to feel bad again, nervous, agitated, and things like that. So I said to him, go ahead, go in, and I'm gonna stay outside for a few minutes more, and I'm gonna try to calm down and relax a bit. So he went in, I stayed outside alone, and it was a very, very hot day, and that didn't help. So I started to get more and more anxious, more and more panicked. And let me describe this, at least how it is for me, for a few seconds. Basically, this is like a snowball, which you roll down from the top of a mountain. It starts off, mildly. I start to get a bit anxious. I start to get a bit nervous and things, and before you know it, it escalates. It just builds and builds and builds, and the snowball, as it rolls down the mountain, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you just cannot stop it. I cannot stop it. And so this is exactly what happened that time as well. And I said, well, this is not good. I'm gonna get out of here. And so I started walking back home. And as I was walking, again, it was getting worse and worse. And right there on the street, in the middle of the street, I started to take off my clothes because I just couldn't. I felt like I needed to escape, but I felt like the very clothes were my very clothes were holding me. I don't know how to describe this. And so I started taking off my clothes, and I guess the people were looking at me strange or something, because I'm not sure. I wasn't really paying attention. I was in my own problem then. I was just trying to find some way of calming down. And it was a long walk back home, and that basically made it even worse. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get back home within a reasonable time or something. My friend was still back in the store, and I was going further and further away from the store. And eventually, as I kept going, I got to a country road, a dirt road, and I took a left there, and I just went down that path. I was trying to find some place to calm down, to be, I don't know, to relax and to try to put an end to that feeling. And I kept going down that dirt road for a while. I couldn't tell you exactly how long. Maybe half a kilometer, something like that, maybe a bit less. Anyway, at one point I got to a grass field, and right next to it was the cornfield, and I immediately just rushed towards the cornfield and went in and to try to isolate myself and to just become invisible, if that makes sense. So I went in there, and I was at my last, I don't know how to say, moments of desperation. So I'm very, very lucky to have found that cornfield. So that's when I finally started a bit to calm down, and I said, okay, this is working. So after several more minutes, I turned on my phone, because I turned it off as I was going down the street from the store, because even the sound of the phone made me anxious. I mean, it amplified the anxiousness. So I couldn't even hear the sound, the ringtone, the sound of the phone. So I completely turned it off as I was walking on the street. So then when I was in the cornfield, I turned the phone back on, and I phoned my friend who was at the store, and he asked me, well, where are you? I mean, where have you gone? And I explained to him that I wasn't feeling well, and that I'm in a cornfield, and I asked him to please bring someone from my family to get me away from there. And he came to my house. He picked up my mother, and they started looking. I couldn't get out of the cornfield to go back to the main road, to signal to them somehow, to show them where I am. So they ended up looking for me for a while. I described my location for a bit, and eventually they found me. And so my mother stayed with me there. My friend, after I calmed down further, he left, and I stayed over there with my mother at the edge of the cornfield on the grass. And there was a little tree over there, casting a nice little shadow. And I couldn't leave that place. I had to wait until it got dark to be able to feel safe, that I can get back to the dirt road, and then from the dirt road to the main road. And then from there we took a cab, and we came back home. So that was the absolute worst panic attack I've had. Well, one of the worst, because they are severe, many of them, and I have to say, you don't know the meaning of the word terror, the true meaning of the word terror, until you've had a severe panic attack. I'm going to try to describe how it feels I'm going to try to describe to you how it feels. Basically, imagine being stuck in an airplane and you're flying at, I don't know, a really, really high altitude. And all of a sudden, all the engines shut down. And you're above the sea. There's no place anywhere close by to land. And the plane is going down, and everybody's starting to scream. And you know what's the worst part? The worst part is that it's not even the fact that you know that you're about to die. The worst part is the fact that it's the anticipation. It's those minutes when you're over there and you know that there's no escape. You know that you can't run anywhere. And everything around you just gives a very different vibe, a completely different vibe. So, for example, let's say you're in that airplane. Now, if it were a regular trip, you would see, people, you would see chairs, you would see trays with food and regular things. It would be just a regular trip, which you would forget about maybe in a few months or years or something like that. So everything would be just normal around you. That's the vibe that you would get. But when something like that, when a panic attack like that strikes, everything gives a completely different vibe. It's like it's no longer just an airplane. It's the airplane in which you're going to die. It's the airplane, it's the chair in front of you, which you're going to break your neck in the fall, and then, who knows, get dismembered and things like that. So all of a sudden, everything gives a completely different vibe. It's the last chair you're going to see in your life. Those are the last people you're going to see in your life. So everything looks exactly the same from a visual standpoint, but everything has a completely different vibe. So while for, I don't know, take me for example, and this is just an example. Let's say I see, I don't know, a street sign or something like that. To everybody else, it's just a street sign. It's a piece of metal with some paint on it and things like that. But to me, when it's a panic attack like that, it gives off a completely different vibe. It's the street sign you're going to fall dead next to. That's what it is. And everything around, not just the street sign and things like that. So there's no way for you to calm down at that moment. That's the thing, because with phobias, let's say you're afraid of, let's say you have arachnophobia, you're afraid of spiders. If you're afraid of spiders and you see a spider, you just run away from it. Or if, I don't know, you go to a zoo or something, you just don't go to the place where they exhibit spiders. But when you have a panic attack, where do you run? There's nowhere to run. There's absolutely no place to run. Everywhere you go, you're trapped. And so you can't run away from anything. How do you protect yourself? How do you run away from something which you cannot run away from? So this is a very, very big problem, because it's not like oh well, I'm just gonna uh, go outside and take a breath of fresh air and things like that. No, because the panic goes with you everywhere you go. It's not something you can just leave out at the door. So it's I don't know. It's foolproof, so to speak. Yeah. And these things, they change you, because all of a sudden you start seeing things which were there all along, but you never really saw them, you know? Like when I was going to school, I was passing by the same trees every day, and I didn't see them. But after these episodes, so to speak, all of a sudden you start seeing the trees. And you start to see their beauty. And and you look at the leaves, and you start to notice how they grow. Yeah. And you start to ask yourself a series of, well, lots and lots of questions, like things like, what if the tree has a panic attack? What if the leaves have panic attacks? They can't even move from there. They can't do anything. And it's actually a bit of a funny story with trees. I remember I was in first year of high school, and I was in my native language class, and the teacher sort of asked every one of us to say something. I don't remember exactly what. It was a bit of a free flow, or a free subject. You could talk a bit, just a few sentences or something like that about anything. And I remember I was looking out the window, and it was an early summer day, and there was a tree right outside the window, and the sun was scorching hot. And I thought to myself, wow, those leaves, they have no place to run from the sunlight. They rely on each other to provide shade and shadow to stay cool. And so when it got to my turn, I said something along the lines of, I'm looking outside the window and I see the tree, which is next to the classroom. And I think that the leaves, which are in the lower layers of the tree, consider themselves very lucky to be there because they have shade from the upper leaves. And then I said something along the lines of, and I think that the leaves in the upper layers would give anything at this moment for a cola. And at that moment, pretty much most of the girls in the class turned towards me, and that was such a fantastic moment. But that's just what I saw. That's how I felt at that moment. That's what I saw when I was looking outside the window. And maybe that's exactly what the leaves were thinking. I mean, who knows, right? And yeah, so that was a really awesome moment. One of my well, it was a really nice memory for me. So yeah, that's what happened in the first year of high school. But with all these panic attacks, there is a silver lining to them as well, because otherwise, if it hadn't been for them, I might not have met you guys. I might not have been able to make these Let's Play videos for you guys. And I might not be here today to talk to you about me and about the videos and things like that. So there are always some things you can pick out, or there are some things you can pick from all the mess and say, look, this is something good. This is something which can be very, very good. And that's actually, I got a message early this year from one of you guys, and the message said, in short, that that person was thanking me for my videos, for my GTA 3 videos, because they helped that person overcome a difficult moment at a certain point in life. And I was so happy about that, because I've had my fair share of down moments and things like that, and I know the value of having something to help you pull through the day, and when you get home, to I don't know, something to look forward to when you get home, and to help all those difficult moments pass easier. And so I was so happy that I could do that for that person. And that's exactly what I want to do for you guys. If I could help you find a a few rays of light in the darkness through my videos, that makes me extremely happy, because there's something that I'm realizing more and more and more, and that's the fact that the road to your own happiness, to your true happiness, your inner happiness, is built by making other people happy. And so with each person you make happy, you're actually putting another brick on the road to your happiness. And so I'm extremely happy to be able to help you and to entertain you in this way. And even if you don't have problems or tough moments when you're watching my videos or things like that, if I can make you just smile for those 10, 15, 20 minutes and say, wow, that was so funny, or that was a really cool move, or something like that, then I'm extremely happy. So that's what I want to do, and I love doing it. So I'm not abandoning you guys, and I'm not going to abandon Let's Plays. But going back to the panic attack issue, there's more to that. So basically, like I said, the third major episode was, when it started at the theater. And the problem with that was the fact that the circumstances in my life at that time and my inability to handle the situation gave birth to a series of other issues and other problems. It mushroomed into additional side problems, let's say. For example, obsessive compulsive disorder. Let me just give you an example. Last summer, I replaced the cooler on my processor, on my desktop PC processor. And an operation which would normally take about 15 minutes, even less than that, took me around 7 or 8 hours. I started at 1 o'clock at night, and I only finished at about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Besides the cooler, I also plugged a cable to an optical drive. But that was it. That was the entire thing I did that night. And during that night, I went through almost an entire brand new bar of soap. Basically, I took the screws off the case. I went to wash my hands. I took off the actual case. I went back to wash my hands. I took off the cooler. I went back to wash my hands, and so on and so forth. And you should also know that I'm a perfectionist, and I like everything to be just perfect. I mean, up to the point where I have trouble sleeping at night if let's say in one of my Let's Play videos, I'm not referring to anyone in particular, any one of the videos in particular, but in general, let's say in one of the videos that there's a frame which a video frame which I'm not happy with. I cut the video one frame too early or one frame too late. Well, I might actually have problems sleeping at night until I fix that situation. So OCD plus perfectionism is really a recipe for disaster. And it, of course, it affects a lot of things. But that's not all. So I became increasingly isolated. I started to slowly cut down on the things I did. Cut this down, then cut that down, and then that, and then that, up to the point where I would say that I've given up probably 80-90% of everything. So, and this is where the disabled comments come into play. So eventually in September 2014, I disabled the comments on my videos. I want to make this very clear. I did not do this to upset anyone. I didn't do it to I don't know, to make anyone mad. And I didn't do it because I was upset because of some comments or something like that. This had nothing to do with it. It was all my own problems, my own issues, and so that's what happened to the comments. And I apologize if it has caused anger, or I don't know, if you were upset by the comments being disabled. But for you, it was the fact that you were unable to comment on a video. For me, it was everyday life, because it didn't stop there. I eventually gave up on my phone. I sold it. I don't have a phone, not even now. I stopped visiting pretty much most of the internet sites. For example, I haven't been on Facebook in, it must be at least 5 years, at least. And it's not like I miss going there, because I didn't really go there in the first place. But I'm just saying this as an example of what's going on. So I don't even know what the pages look like on Facebook nowadays, let alone Instagram or whatever that thing is called. So yeah. And speaking of phones, a friend of mine actually showed me last December. He showed me on his phone a couple of really crazy apps. There was one app which basically used the camera, and you put the phone in front of you, and it monitored your face, and in real time, it applied all sorts of effects onto the image, like a bunny face. It would stretch out your face a bit and put whiskers on it, and things like that. And I was like, wow, that's possible nowadays. That's wow. I mean, in real time, that was I don't know, a wow moment for me. So yeah, and this in a way makes me feel like a human time capsule in a way, because really, especially over the last few years, I've given up on the internet as a whole, almost entirely. For example, in the last 3 months, I accessed the internet. I think I can count the number of times I accessed the internet on one hand, on the fingers of one hand, in the last 3 months. So in the rest of the time, the internet connection is completely disabled. I just, that's what's happening. This is who has been bringing you all these Let's Plays over the last 9.5 years. And I thought that at least with my Let's Plays I would be able to, I don't know how to say this, keep things under control, so to speak. But inevitably it affected those things as well, and thus the large amounts of time in which I haven't uploaded things. And yeah, basically last year in December, when I re-enabled the comments for all of my videos, and I started answering your comments and your messages, I had like a breakthrough. A breakthrough moment. I tried to just break this cage I'm in. This cage, because I live in a cage which is in a prison which is built by me. It's built by my own mind. This is I don't know how to describe it otherwise. So I tried to break out, and that resulted in me re-enabling comments and starting talking to you guys, and starting to use the internet a bit more again, and things like that. But I slowly got pulled back again into the cage. It's like every time you try to break out, so to speak, you're trying to make a move, you're trying to stay focused on overcoming some of these issues, something pulls you back. You can't stay focused all of the time, 100% of the time, and when you're not, I mean, when you let your guard down, that's when things sneak up on you and try to bring you back to that way of life, so to speak. So yeah, that's what's happening. And it didn't stop there with the severe panic attacks. I mean, when these additional issues surfaced, like the OCD and stuff, it didn't stop with the panic attacks. For example, this summer I again had a severe panic attack, which actually caused me to faint. I had stomach bleeding, stress-related stomach bleeding. I was forbidden to eat anything for 3 consecutive days and 2 nights. And right now, I actually live. I have a little piece of paper. Well, sort of a little note, so to speak, next to my desk, which no one knows about this. Only I know about this until now. I mean, I haven't told anyone about this, not even my family. So there's a little piece of paper which instructs anyone on what to do in case during one of these severe panic attacks something fatal happens to me. Because that's one of the things. It's you adding on top of the panic is the fact that your heart is pumping and your heart is pumping and it's pumping and it's pumping and you get the feeling that it's going to snap at any moment and you're going to have a heart attack and you're just going to die on that spot. And actually many times it's the terror is so strong that you get to the point where you say, God, just please kill me right now. Just please kill me. Death becomes a preferable option to that terror, which just doesn't stop. No matter where you go, it just doesn't stop. And of course, I would never do that, never ever do that. I would never take my own life. That I just want to make that very, very clear. But it just gets to the point where you say, well, God, if you want to, then do it. Just please kill me now. Just stop this terror. And so the little piece of paper which I have next to my desk is in a easy to find place. So it's not hidden or anything like that, but no one knows about it so far. And I've listed some things, what to do for people, what to do with my stuff if something fatal happens to me. And that's essentially my life. That's how I live. And what else can I say? Of course, there are some other things which some other issues and things like that, but really it's my life. And I just want to say something. I'm not telling you all this because I want you to feel sorry for me or something like that. I just want you to know what's going on, because I really believe that you deserve to have some explanations, to know what's happening. And one of you said that this is I should talk, I should tell you what's going on, and I should be upfront about what's happening. And this is what this video is about. Now, of course, I do have dreams. I do have things to look forward to, and one of my biggest dreams, so to speak, is I would like to see the aurora borealis or the northern lights, because I think that that's just one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful thing in nature. And just being able to see it live would be, I think, so overwhelming and so full of ideas, and it would have so much to say, because it really puts things into perspective. Because not only does it put on this beautiful dance, this amazing dance, which it just performs time after time after time, and it doesn't care if there's anyone watching or if no one's watching. It just puts on a show, and it just dances there on the starry sky, as if, you know, I don't care if anyone's watching or not. I'm just gonna have a ton of fun, and that's just amazing. And it also puts things into perspective, because you see the invisible, because it's, of course, the Earth's magnetic field, and you can sort of see something which is all around you and even goes through you, and you don't see it normally. But to be able to see this amazing light manifestation of it is awesome. And it just reminds you that we're just a planet. We're not the masters of the universe or something like that. And it actually it's funny when I hear contests like Miss Universe or something like that, because we're just a planet. How do you know what's out there and how many other species and things are out there, which of course might not look beautiful to us, but it's all subjective. And yeah, it's silly calling something like that Miss Universe, when you're really only judging like 12, 20 persons from a teeny tiny planet in the middle of nowhere in terms of space. So yeah, and if I ever do make it over there, or if I manage to get there, I would like to record a video of it for you guys to post here on this channel, and to show you, look, I did it. I got there. This is the aurora borealis. This is what I've wanted to see. This is something a moment I want to share with you guys, something I want you to see as well, and to have somebody to share it there live in person as well. So that's about it for this video. I want to thank you all very, very much for supporting me. You guys are awesome, and if you've listened to this whole video or this entire audio, then all my hats go off to you guys. And like I said in my first post here, text post here on YouTube, I love you guys. I love you, all of you. And I constantly think of things and ways to improve my Let's Plays, but there's so much more I would like to do for you guys. Like, for example, I had an idea at one point that... Take my horror Let's Plays, for example. I had an idea that I'd like to strap some sort of bracelet or a device which measures the heartbeat, and then put the actual heartbeat, the pulse, on top of the video in one of the corners, synchronized to the actual recording which is taking place. So you get to see my actual physical reactions to all the scares and all the dark corridors and all the monsters just popping up behind me and scaring me, and that would be just awesome, I think. But I don't know, I have no idea where to start with this and what type of equipment I would need. And well, with all these things it's I'm dealing with and things like that, it's it would be very difficult to even put it into practice once I would have such an equipment which would make it possible to record the heartbeat, then somehow make a graphical representation of it, like a graph, like you see in the movies with the lines going up and down with a pulse, and then of course adding that graphic on top of the video as well and synchronizing it with the video. So that's one of the ideas I had, and this is just one of the ideas that I've had for you guys. But yeah, this is it for this update video. And I have one more thing to say, and that is the fact that I am in the very last moments of preparation for my GTA Vice City Let's Play, which I have promised to you guys in spring, I believe, in early spring or even in February. I'm not exactly sure. So it's about to start. It's almost there, and I really think you're going to love it, guys. I have some ideas for that as well. I've already described some of my ideas in my first text post here on YouTube, and you can check that out on my channel page and read up a bit what one of the things which I want to do with that particular Let's Play. And of course, I'm not abandoning the other Let's Plays either, the unfinished Let's Plays. So I hope that you guys can understand this situation, and I know that you're going to understand, because you guys are simply amazing. I mean, I consider myself honored to have such amazing subscribers, supporters, and friends, like I say in the beginning of many of my videos. So that's it for me. Thank you again very much for listening to this video. well, for the audio from this video. And I'm gonna see you in my next Let's Play videos. I'm Coect. Good night.